Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Thrive55 Plus podcast, where we give practical inspiration so you get healthier. Your host, Cheryl Jones, will help you uncover more of who you already are and explore what you need to heal and flourish one moment at a time. Cheryl is an author, wellness leader, and health coach voted one of the most powerful women in the mindfulness movement by Mindful Magazine. There is no AI-generated content in this podcast. This has been created by subject matter expert Cheryl Jones.
Welcome to the Thrive55 Plus show. I'm your host, Cheryl Jones, and in this episode, I'm talking with Joan Pagano about the importance of strength training to build healthier bones as we age. Joan is the author of best-selling fitness books, an informational speaker on health and fitness topics, and the owner of Joan Pagano Fitness in New York City. She is recognized by the industry as a leading authority on exercise program design for osteoporosis. Joan and I shared the honor of being personal trainers to Caroline Kennedy and Jacqueline Onassis. Joan, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Cheryl. It's my pleasure.
You've helped so many people over the years. What inspired you to do this work?
Well, a couple of things happened simultaneously. One was sort of what was going on globally in fitness in the late 1980s, and the other was how my career path took me. What was happening in fitness in the 1980s was that cardio was king. Everything was about the health benefits of cardiovascular training coming out of Kenneth Cooper's Aerobics Institute in Texas. Marathon training was all the rage. It was Jane Fonda high impact dance aerobics. It was aerobics and cardio and et cetera, back and forth. Very little was being said about strength training, which was considered more sort of a male-dominated form of exercise that was mainly performed in very hardcore gyms, and women were certainly not interested in getting all sweaty and perhaps, God forbid, bulking up. So just at that moment in the fitness world, the benefits of strength training for health, for women's health especially, started to edge onto the stage. And it was discovered that there were tremendous benefits for women's bone health in particular. So the stage was being set for strength training, benefits of strength training for women's health. At the same time, I had begun to explore fitness training for post-operative breast surgery for women who'd had breast cancer. And I was giving workshops at a grassroots organization called SHARE. Because of the age of those women who had had breast cancer, or because their treatments had thrown them into an early menopause, their interest in osteoporosis, exercise for osteoporosis, was very high. So that was my cue to explore more about the benefits of strength training for both people who had had breast cancer and for people in general. And that was the beginning of developing a protocol, which I then presented at national audiences of fitness instructors on the benefits of strength training for osteoporosis, prevention, and treatment.
Such an incredible journey, and it's so interesting how things present themselves in our lives. You know, you were talking about strength training for women, and during that chapter, I was just finishing up my undergrad work, and I was a bodybuilder. So I was not at all thinking about the health benefits and the strength of my bones for my future life, but I was just really into bodybuilding because it just seemed fun. And plus it helped me to pass my anatomy class because it made sense that, oh, you do this exercise for your pectoral muscles or this exercise for your back muscles. And so it just actually helped me learn and pass a really hard class.
We were both pioneers. You were a pioneer for women doing bodybuilding, which very few women were. And I was beginning to pioneer the protocols for the benefits of that.
Yes, absolutely. And so grateful that that was what brought our journeys together. What does it even mean to have healthy bones, and why does this matter?
Yeah, we don't think too much about our skeleton, which is comprised of all our bones. We kind of take it for granted. Not much was being said about healthy skeleton. We were talking about healthy heart, then healthy brain, et cetera, et cetera. But the skeleton is the framework that supports our body and gives us our mobility and our posture, our body mechanics. It's an integral part of the musculoskeletal system. Obviously, the muscles and bones work together to provide this framework for our lifestyles, for our day-to-day, as well as for any physical activity that we're going to engage in. So the bones are integral. And if the bones start to become porous and weak, which is what osteoporosis means, porous bones, then they may begin to collapse themselves, become fractured. They can affect our posture. They can affect our center of gravity. They can then start affecting all the major physiological systems of the body if the bones are not strong.
We're just awakening to this truth and this reality of how important having a strong skeleton is. How do we know if we have healthy bones, and then how do we strengthen them?
First of all, may I say that you were in a prime bone building era in your 20s as you were doing your bodybuilding. You were actually very fortunate because at that time you can still impact the most bone that you will have in your lifetime, which is established by the time you're about 30. So that's called your peak bone mass, and that is the most bone you will ever have. And if you have not been an active child running and jumping and eating a good diet of calcium and vitamin D and playing outside in the sun, and if you have progressed through your adolescence and late teens and early 20s without proper impact on your bones, then you will never develop the bone in the bank, you might call it, that is established by the time you're 30. So your impulse to do bodybuilding at that time was a very healthy impulse, even though you didn't think of it like that.
That actually made my day. How do we know if we have healthy bones?
First of all, it's wise to inform yourself about risk factors. The primary risk factors actually are being a woman, being of advancing age, having family history, and having a certain body type, long, thin bones, a small framework, let's call. Those are non-modifiable risk factors that you cannot change. And then there are other risk factors, such as not tolerating dairy well, or smoking, or not being active. There are other modifiable risk factors that can also impact your bones. So when I was a younger woman, I knew that I had a family history, I wasn't tolerating dairy, and I'm a true ectomorph, long, thin bones. And I asked my gynecologist when I was 50 if I could have a bone density test, which is how we measure the mineral content of our bones, because I knew that I had risk factors and I wanted to be able to chart them as I was getting older. And because of that, because I asked specifically, I was able to get a bone density test. It's not covered by Medicare in the US until age 65, which is really kind of late to start monitoring your bones. So if you inform yourself about your risk factors and you go equipped with information about why you think you should have a bone density test, then you can get one, and then you have one every couple of years to monitor your progress to see how your bones are aging with you. That's the best test that we have now. It doesn't give us all the information we need. It really only gives us the mineral content of the bones, the calcium content of the bones. So it doesn't tell us about the microarchitecture and why some people who get a poor bone density reading may never fracture because they actually have a strong infrastructure in their bones. But this test is the best that we have. New tests are coming out, which also measure the microarchitecture of the bones and can give us even more information. A little bit further down the line, if a woman has lost height more than 1.5 inches, let's say, it's kind of stunning. And that's why we should get measured annually at our physical for our height, because as gravity takes its toll and as we age, we become more dehydrated. All the tissues in the body become more dehydrated. We naturally start to lose height. But if you lose a surprising amount of height in a relatively short period of time, it could indicate that maybe you have compression fractures in your spine. This is something that we really need to avoid, because if your spine does have compression fractures and you start to sort of slump forward, in other words, you become, we call it spinal flexion, you're sort of slumped in spinal flexion as opposed to being able to sit upright, that's an indication that you may have osteoporosis. So 2 things, an extreme loss of height, unexpected loss of height, and an extreme forward posture are 2 sort of clinical indications. But otherwise, osteoporosis is a silent disease, and you may have no idea that it's progressing unless you have bone density tests done.
I'm so focused on, and I know you are as well, on empowering people so that they can practice a higher level of self-care and to, be aware of, as you had mentioned, what are the risk factors, what is my family history, and practicing being aware in the body, what is happening within my body, and staying very tuned into that. And again, being able to age positively, to be able to thrive forward, to me is all about this. Like, how do we take charge and feel like we're in charge of something? And I think aging gracefully, this is part of it. What is the best way to strengthen our bones?
Strength training is one of the 2 types of exercise that have been found to be very impactful for the bones. The other is weight-bearing cardio, and I'd like to briefly describe both. Strength training is a method of applying resistance to the muscles that then transfers to the bones. So when you contract a muscle, that muscle pulls on the bone and creates bone deposition at the site of stress. This was discovered. The early studies compared the dominant playing arm of a tennis player to the non-dominant arm and found that the dominant arm, the serving arm, was so much stronger in the bones than the non-dominant arm. That was one indication. And the other was that when astronauts went into space and they were subjected to anti-gravity, they lost bone, which had to be restored when they came back to a gravity field, the gravity field of Earth. So there were some interesting early studies being done that showed the benefit of strength training on the bones. So we say there's a parallel hypertrophy of muscle and bone. As you're developing your muscle, you're developing your bones. The other type of exercise that's so important for us is weight-bearing cardio. Weight-bearing is any exercise where you're on your feet. So it's walking, it's standing. So if you have a choice, do your exercises standing. It could be high impact or it could be low impact. High impact weight-bearing cardio would be high impact aerobic dance class or running, an exercise where both feet are off the ground at the same time as in gymnastics or basketball. So high impact is defined as exercise or activity when both feet are off the ground at the same time. Low impact is when one foot is on the ground. So this would be walking, elliptical, stair climbing, a low impact aerobic dance class, things like that. The new research coming out is also showing that for people who have osteopenia, which is it's low bone density, not yet osteoporotic. So anybody who has osteopenia or mild osteoporosis will benefit from an impact program, meaning an impact program where both feet are off the ground, as in a low jump or jump rope. So this impact we're discovering is very important. And whereas at one time we thought that would be hazardous for people whose bones were showing a weakening over time, we have found now the new studies show that it actually helps. So we have strength training, we have weight-bearing cardio, and we have, especially if your joints can tolerate it, which is a big question, impact cardio.
So, Joan, for somebody who is maybe just getting physically active, it's never too late to begin again. I always feel like it's the present moment, right here, right now, no matter how many years we have or have not exercised. Maybe this is a new idea to really make exercise and strength training part of one's routine. So, how would you recommend for someone who maybe hasn't been so physically active to get started?
Great question. My method starts with body weight exercises like squats and push-ups, a modified back bend, an abdominal compression of some kind, because those types of exercises will help you learn the proper form, alignment, and kinesthetic awareness of how you should be holding your body. So for instance, if you talk about a wall push-up or you talk about push-ups, you could do a wall push-up where you are standing against a wall with your arms outstretched and you are leaning into the wall and pushing back. So you're not lifting a lot of body weight, but you're getting some stimulus to three major muscles of the upper body: the chest, the front of the shoulder, and the triceps. Then you could progress to a kitchen counter or diagonal push-up, which is one of my favorites, because you always have a few extra moments in the kitchen when you could do 10 or 15 kitchen counter push-ups, where your body's at a diagonal, so you have shifted more body weight onto the upper body. Then you could go down to the floor and do half push-ups from your knees. And if you're ambitious, you could do a full military-style push-up. So within push-ups, there are many variations, and one of them will work for everyone. So push-ups, three major muscles of the upper body. Squats target three major muscles of the lower body: the glutes in the butt, the quads in the front of the thighs, and the hamstrings in the back of the thighs. And you could do sit to stand squats. Even my mother, when she was in a wheelchair in her 90s, could do 10 sit to stand squats, where you start from a seated position and stand up, because everybody has to be able to get up from a seated position. You need to be able to transfer from the wheelchair to the toilet or to the bed. So everybody can do sit to stands. And then you could progress to stand to sit, where you start in a standing position and then you squat down. Then you can add weights to that. And then you could add a little jump to a side squat. So again, there are many variations. One of them will work for everybody. If you have tricky knees, you could do a wall slide, for instance, where you slide down the wall until you feel your quadriceps kick in and start to burn. If you never go beyond the body weight exercises, you will be so much further ahead of the game than if you didn't do them. And if you do progress to doing more types of external resistance, could be on machines, it could be with free weights, it could be with stretch bands and tubes or weighted balls or kettlebells, then you will be so much further ahead of the game, because you will already know how to position your body and stabilize the proper muscle, the proper bones, really, so that you engage the proper muscles.
Yeah, it's so important. Form. I go to the gym. I started going back to a gym for the first time in 20 years this year, and just can feel the difference in my body being strong again. And I look around at the form that people are in the gym and they're doing these exercises and investing the time. And I just want to walk over to everyone and correct. It's so hard, because I am like genuinely worried that they will hurt themselves, or at the very least, it's just not going to be effective. So I love what you said. And it's so simple, not always so easy, but very simple to start to work with your own body. The way that you're describing these body weight exercises, it's a beautiful way to help a person to get connected with their body and then, as you said, be able to take that to other forms of more advanced exercise when you know your body enough to know, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel. I'm feeling it in my muscle and not my joint, etc.
Please, 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 listeners, do not go into a gym and start doing what you see other people doing. Cheryl's little experience of going into a gym and seeing how many people are exercising wrong, you could really hurt yourself like that. So if you are going into a setting like that, you should definitely get a little orientation with somebody who is knowledgeable about the right exercise for your condition, whatever it might be.
It's such an important point, and we don't like to admit it, but the truth is that as we age and being over 55, the chances of getting injured are greater if we don't really pay attention to what we're doing. And it's not fun to get an injury and have a setback and not be able to do what we are trying to do more of. Creates a whole nother kind of challenge. But let's say we do as you say, Joan, and we start to get familiar with some very simple body weight exercises, and we're starting to develop a routine. Are we able to reverse some of that bone loss? What are the benefits that a person might experience?
Some people actually have been able to reverse bone loss. That's really a remarkable result. But people have, and more people who are doing lifestyle modifications, like embracing exercise, the right exercise for their bones, are finding that it's valuable, not only in terms of possibly reversing a diagnosis that they've had, but that they can guard against further bone loss. So that it means you're winning. If you are not losing more bone, if you can maintain what you have, even if it's not reversing a diagnosis, let's say, which is really pretty amazing, but it can happen, but you're just maintaining, even that is a total win because you're not losing more bone. This is a really important point for our audience today, Cheryl, which is that at the time of menopause, for the 5 to 7 years after menopause, the bone mineral density decreases by 2 to 3% per year. So that is on the outside, let's say for 7 years, losing 3% a year, that's 21% of your skeleton that you could lose during the time immediately postmenopausal, which is because we are losing the protective effect of estrogen. So this is really important, and another reason why it's never too late, and definitely start now, start gently, start gradually, be careful, guide your body through the process. You need to be able to strengthen the connective tissue as well as the muscles as you're going up in your weights or you're becoming more aggressive in your weight-bearing cardio. But it's never too late to start, and this is a really good time to begin.
That's so inspiring, Joan. And even like for me, I literally just before we jumped on to this interview, I signed myself up for a ballet class.
Oh, good. That's great.
We're talking about the weight bearing because I get bored with myself. Like I'm in the other category of someone who has exercised my entire life. And so for me, cross training and mixing it up so I keep myself motivated is so important. So we've got, hopefully in our conversation, we're showing that whether you're a beginner or somebody who has always had exercise as a habit, it's always about meeting ourselves where we are and being able to help our bodies to thrive forward. Joan, how can people get in contact with you?
Definitely through my website, joanpaganofitness.com. I have tons of free information about exercise in general, and especially exercise for bone health and osteoporosis. I have a whole body of work on my website. Of course, there are my books, Strength Training for Women and Strength Training Exercises for Women, that you can order from Amazon that are really great if you're just starting out, or even if you want to advance and you need some, like you said, Cheryl, some stimulation, you need some different ideas for how to exercise or how to do strength training. You shouldn't just do the same routine over and over. So you definitely need to challenge yourself in new ways and find different ways to do it. Sometimes a book can be a great guide for that. If you sign up on my website for my Fitness Refresh program, you'll get 10 little videos of exercises that you could do around your house or apartment. We start with limbering exercises on the side of the bed in the morning. We go into the kitchen. There are 4 or 5 different modules on exercises you could do at your kitchen sink. Then we go into the home office, and there are 3 modules on exercise and stretching and staying upright in your office. And we end up with end of the day couch stretches while you're watching TV. So definitely you could make a whole program just going through your house and going through your day and exercising in little bits and pieces as you make your way through your day.
Well, I encourage everyone to take advantage of the resources that Joan has just outlined. I can tell you that I have all of her books, and they are excellent. They're so informative. They are so articulate. They're clear. The pictures are beautiful. It's very motivating and very empowering. As soon as you pick up a book, you feel like, oh, I can do this. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom, your experience, your insights to help inspire our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl. It was absolutely my pleasure.
In closing, I want to thank you once again for allowing me to be part of your journey. I hope you'll give these practices a try and see what you discover. If you have a comment or a question about today's episode, just write to me at Cheryl@thrivingwithcheryljones.com. Join me next time when we'll explore what it means to really listen in conversations, to strengthen connection, and to champion others. Thanks so much for listening. Be well and thrive on.
Thank you for tuning in to the Thrive 55 Plus podcast. Contact Cheryl with a burning question, access free mindfulness meditation resources, and schedule a free consultation to explore how you can achieve your goals and aspirations through personalized coaching sessions with Cheryl. Just visit her website, thrivingwithcheryljones.com. Subscribe to or follow the Thrive 55 Plus podcast. Leave a review or share it with a friend. Next time, be well and thrive on.